Excuse me, I'd like to call to order the San Rafael City Council meeting of Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019. Ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We met in closed session. I'll ask Mr. City Attorney if there's any reportable action.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. No reportable action was taken in closed session.
Thank you very much. Then we'll turn to open time for public expression, an opportunity for you to address us on matters that are on your mind, but not on this evening's agenda. Won't be able to take action, but certainly be interested in your points. And Somalia Locke has first cut at this. Good evening.
Accent on the second syllable. Salama.
Salama, I'm sorry.
Locks.
I said it too fast, I'm sorry.
Do I just leave it right there? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I represent the Commission on Aging, as you know, and bringing you updates. This Thursday at the B Street Community Center at 10 a.m., we will be doing our updates of our annual plan. And this will be the last one for the 2016-2020 area plan update. And we don't present it dry. We have a van of white and a panel, and we kind of, do a little skit, make it fun, just see all of those numbers and all the great things that the Commission and age-friendly activities have been doing, and so forth. And May 2nd, we're hot. May 2nd is the Older Americans Month. And that's when we feature a special event. And this year we're having Paul Glassman. He's a dentist, and he's going to be speaking on dental health. And Jessie Johnson, she's a clinical manager for the Hearing and Speech Center of Northern California, will be speaking on hearing loss issues. It is a luncheon, $20 for the lunch. And if people want more information, they can call the 415-457-INFO number. And we do want pre-registration, and there is an online link, but you can call the info number. And I say to people, be there or be square. Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? In which case we shall close, turn to the consent calendar, and I'll ask that item 4C be held. Any others? Is there a motion with regard to the consent calendar?
Move approval A through E without C.
And second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Collin.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, that matter carries 4-0. We'll
Mr.
turn
Mayor, I
to-
didn't want to slow your progress on the consent calendar, but I do have a couple items under
I'm
City
sorry.
Manager report.
I've done that several times. I apologize.
You were on a roll. I just thought you should keep
Yeah,
going.
no. We'll return to 4C in a moment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Because it's a lighter agenda, I have about 45 minutes worth of
good.
updates
We
and
were hoping you
announcements
would.
tonight.
That's why we skipped you.
The first is that the San Rafael Chamber is going to name their Business of the Year at the State of the City, which is happening this Thursday, April 4th, from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Peacock Gap Clubhouse. And tickets are still available at srchamber.com. But there are the categories of Large Business of the Year, Small Business of the Year, Downtown Business of the Year, and then there's a Joe Garbarino Green Business of the Year nominee. And there's 12 in that category, and the City of San Rafael is one of those. So we're proud to be in that group of 12 to be considered for Green Business of the Year, and those will all be named on Thursday. Also, today was the first day that we started accepting applications for our 2019 sidewalk repair program. It's going to be open through May 17th, so the community has about a month and a half to apply to be a part of the program in the second year. Residential property owners accepted in the program split the cost of the sidewalk improvement up to $1,000 in city contribution, and the city can contribute up to another $4,000 in curb and gutter repair. And if residents are not sure whether their sidewalk needs it or not, they can apply anyway, and we provide free sidewalk assessments. And also, we provide free kind of grinding if it's something that's a simpler matter and not as bad. To find out information on it at our main homepage at cityofsanrafael.org, it's the top news item right now. But you could also just type the word sidewalk into the search bar, and it's the first thing that has come up. And since it's day one, I thought I would test it today and see if we were having kind of like a healthcare.gov situation of like so many people flocking to it
Right.
that the website breaks down, and I could assure you that it tested just fine. We expect that we'll get a lot of applicants. We got a lot in year one, and we are spending the full amount of funds that the council had allocated in year one, and we expect to get a lot of applicants in year two as well. I did want to bring up one other public works project, which is just because I'm so happy that it got put in place, which is the Grand Avenue pedestrian bridge. So nice to see it there. I want to appreciate Bill Guerin and Public Works. We're still on schedule to have it opened for the public by the end of, by Memorial Day is the day that we're making sure that we do it in advance of. We started with the Second and Grand intersection, and then we're moving to the Grand Avenue Bridge, which will be completed shortly. And then from the other side, kind of the Bellum, Kerner, there's been sidewalk widening all the way up to Vivian. So the final piece is kind of Vivian to the Grand Avenue Bridge. And the city does have funds through outside grants that we've obtained in the past to do that piece as well. So it's very exciting. Each of the milestones that are being accomplished are fantastic because it will ultimately realize the long-term dream of being able to have much, much better bike and pedestrian connections all the way through that canal area along Francisco and into Montecito, San Rafael High, and downtown. So it's another big milestone. And then lastly, on Saturday, May 4th at 10 a.m. until noon at the Embassy Suites, there is a countywide wildfire forum that's taking place, Wildfire Community Preparedness Day. And the community will be able to learn more about what's going on countywide and regarding wildfire prevention and emergency preparedness, what individuals can do to protect their own homes, and how we can work together to make Marin wildfire safe. So again, that's on May 4th from 10 to noon at Embassy Suites. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is one item you forgot to mention that I think is worth commenting on. There was a major article in today's newspaper about an award that was presented to a particular group of our Terra Linda High School students. Do you know anything about that, or?
Soon to be Terra Linda High School students, current Miller Creek,
Miller Creek.
middle
I
school
apologize.
students.
Yes, I apologize.
Has a team in the Odyssey of the Mind state tournament happened on Saturday, and the team representing Miller Creek took first place in the entire state, and they will be moving on to the World Finals. The World Finals this year are at Michigan State University.
Right.
Again, hoping for Paris or London or something, but it'll be Michigan State University. So, and this particular team has reached no other team from Marin has made it to the World Finals in the past, and this team will have been going for 2 years in a row, and 2 of the kids are mine on the team.
I was going to say, you seem to know a lot about this. Is there any reason for that?
Thank you for
In
the
any case,
opportunity to brag.
congratulations, and congratulations to Miller Creek, and in particular your 2 fine children.
It's an academic, like a creativity academic competition.
Somewhat.
Debate,
Yeah.
performance, problem solving, a little bit of STEM engineering. It's a mix. Odyssey of the mind.
So it's quite an achievement. In fact, there were 3 categories, and the team won in first place in each of the 3. And you said how many teams were there?
I'm not
million,
sure
I
at
think
this
you said.
state level. It was close to 1 million, yes.
In any case, congratulations to you and the family. Let's, I think I'd call that 4-0 on the first part of this. So we'll turn now to 4C, renaming of Falkirk Cultural Center Greenhouse. And we may or may not have a staff report on this, but certainly we have in our presence the Honorable Larry Mulryan, Mayor of San Rafael for 12 years and total of 20 years with Planning Commission thrown in. So we're delighted, I'm delighted, and I'm sure we'll recognize the Mulryan UC Marin Master Gardener Greenhouse that Larry has spent a lot of time on. And I've only allowed him 45 minutes to talk about it, so I'll invite you up, Larry.
Well, thank you all for considering this tonight. It's been a real pleasure to be able to do what we've done at Falkirk, and as you probably all know, I encourage you to go up there now. I know we're going to have a little time to put the plaque in, hopefully, but right now it's looking beautiful. There's 5,800 tomato plants. The seeds they're just beginning to sprout. They're little 1-inchers, and in April 27th, they will be sold throughout the county. But, you know, the history of this and the Master Gardeners, I think, is really admirable example of volunteer efforts. Because when the city purchased Falkirk, it had not really been a family, the Dollar family hadn't lived there for a while, and the grounds were not really up to the best. And after a while being, after I was no longer in office, I joined Marin Master Gardeners and was on the board and kind of got people interested in Falkirk, and it became a real favorite and still is. And what the Master Gardeners have done is just remarkable. Not only have they, what once was a little scrubby piece of land next to the house, it had been a play area when the Dollar family was tiny and young, and by the time we bought it, it was just weeds. It's now a beautiful succulent garden, all done with volunteers, and there's right adjacent to that is the Mediterranean garden, which represents all the Mediterranean areas of the world, including California and so forth. It's beautiful, and not only that, on top of that, Master Gardeners put together a team of volunteers to rebuild actually the greenhouse. There was a lot of work needed to be done, including main structures on the roof beam to make it safe for years to come, and is fully functioning. And with the cooperation of the city and Master Gardeners have become great partners in this. And right now, as I say, there's thousands of plants up there, but it's just a wonderful use. And not only that, Master Gardeners have assembled a team that is just not only continues to keep the greenhouse functioning, but in a professional level. There's coolers, there's heaters, there's fans, and it's kept. You can't even walk in there unless you have permission almost, because they want to keep the plants healthy. So anyway, it's a great use, great asset for the city, and I appreciate you folks considering this for us. And we do have much of the leadership of Master Gardeners here. We have one of our co-presidents, David Lewis, our executive director, and other Master Gardeners, and my wife's even here. So anyway, thank you all for considering. If you'd like to hear from David?
Sure. This is kind of a special night, so we're glad to welcome you.
Staffer the Master Gardeners has, right?
Well, Stephen Swain as well.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, David's a great guy, and you're representing Master Gardeners.
Mayor, I'll be very brief, and I just want to say on behalf of the University of California Cooperative Extension and the Master Gardeners, what we get to do at Falkirk is a real privilege, and it's a partnership, but I think the way in which you're honoring Larry today speaks to the friendship. And Larry, you know Larry as mayor, Mayor Mulryan.
Yes, we do.
We know him as a wonderful Master Gardener that's just made such a difference in our community. So that friendship and the way you're recognizing him today and the partnership that we have at Falkirk, we greatly appreciate. So thank you. Thank you all.
Well, it's our pleasure indeed. Of course, I'm assuming it's going to pass, the motion, but let's assume
So that was a
for
little
the moment.
advocacy on my
Let's
part.
assume that for the moment.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Comments? There might be. We can certainly ask. Would anyone else wish to address us on this issue? Please. Yeah, sure. You're more than welcome. We have a light agenda tonight. We designed it that way for Larry.
Thanks, and I'll be brief as well. I am Kathleen Surf. I am Larry and Betty Mulryan's daughter. And this is so wonderful to me because of the years that Dad has given to the city of San Rafael and giving back to the community from as a kid growing up in Montmorin and looking at the hills and all of that open space out in Lucas Valley, that he was really instrumental in saving that for the city and saving that for the community. And there was a I wrote up something here briefly, and I can just kind of go over it quickly that summarizes
Sure, please do.
Falkirk work that was done at Falkirk. In 1973, former Mayor Larry Mulryan, it came to his attention that the Dollar family, the owners of Falkirk for nearly 100 years, was wanting to sell the property, tear down the buildings, and convert it to apartments. Mayor Mulryan did not see this as the best use of the properties and took the opportunity to tour the buildings and grounds and determined that it was such a unique and beautiful piece of property, the city really needed to purchase it. At this point, Mayor Mulryan approached the other council members and put the matter of use and possible acquisition on the agenda and began the process of obtaining full council approval to purchase the property. Eventually, it was decided to create a ballot measure to determine whether the city should purchase it. Mayor Mulryan negotiated a very good price, $275,000, and the proposal was put on the ballot. In 1974, the voters approved of the purchase of Falkirk and its surrounding grounds, totaling over 11 acres. In 1975, the city of San Rafael formally designated Falkirk as a community cultural center. Falkirk has hosted many art exhibits, community celebrations, and is a popular venue for weddings. In later years, as Dad and the UC Marin Master Gardeners have talked about, that the bringing together of Dad and Mom being master gardeners and the work in restoring the greenhouse, and it's just become a wonderful spot for the community, and my desire to have Dad honored for the work that he's done for the city, and in conjunction with the UC Master Gardeners, it really just seemed like a natural hand-to-hand celebration of both my dad and UC Master Gardeners and the gift that really they have brought to the city of San Rafael. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for those very kind words, and certainly most deserved. Larry's been a real star in our community, so we greatly appreciate all that he did during his time here. So thank you for further recognizing him. And with that, we'll return for a motion if we're so inclined. Sure, everybody does. Well, in unison. Go ahead.
You're dying to say something, but,
Well,
but I'll say it first. I would be happy to make a motion. And thank you, Larry, again, for everything that you've done for the community and continue to do for the community. I mean, the greenhouse is incredible. So thank you for reminding us that we should be checking it out now that the rain has stopped and the plants are growing.
if I could just make a comment,
Please.
with all due respect to Larry, mentally, I associate the greenhouse with as the Larry and Betty Mulryan greenhouse, but that's just a mental identification. I know we're not here for that tonight, but I would be proud to second the motion.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Collins.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, the matter barely squeaks by, Larry. 4-0. Delighted. Thanks so much for joining us and all the work you've done on behalf of San Rafael. It's been great. We'll move on to now a presentation, Resolution Appreciation and Human Resources Department team on the fourth quarter. Yeah. Yes. So we've got a whole team here. Wow, this is kind of special, huh? The team was previously recognized, but it's my pleasure to do so again. And in part, we'll read from the resolution of appreciation that we've all signed. And it says, whereas resolution appreciation presented to the Human Resources Department, so it's a whole department, combined Sylvia, Rhonda, and Jennifer have a combined 18 years of service with the city of San Rafael. That's a lot. The HR team has dealt professionally with it and admiredly, I'm not reading very well tonight, with the vacancy of a director position, and has done a fantastic job of accomplishing tasks and keeping everything moving forward. They always maintain a positive and can-do attitude, and are a pleasure to partner with to get things done. We have a vacancy in the department, so these three have filled in admirably, as it mentions, in that absence. In October 2018, the team organized a successful employee wellness fair, resulting in educating over 200 employee attendees on wellness and protecting approximately 60 employees from potential flu shots. And Sylvia, in the absence of the HR director, calmly and coolly performs the additional duties and tasks outside the scope of her usual work. Sounds like you're doing double duty. I don't know, huh? Well, that's great. Including becoming a member of the CJPRMA. I'm not sure what that is, but you can help us with that. Board and presenting the Human Resource Matters to the City Council. Rhonda is always prompt in her response and inquiries and is helpful in communicating to the public and employees. For example, while going through the recruitment process, she never bats an eye when the recruiting director asks multiple questions and makes requests. Rhonda is incredibly caring, thoughtful, and kind, and always takes a genuine interest in making sure everyone gets the best possible outcomes. And Jennifer is a welcome, friendly face. Human Resources Office, always helpful, attentive to detail, and exceptional issue spotter. And the city is fortunate to have a cohesive human resources team, so we're delighted to recognize the team. You want to say anything? There's a lot here. If you add anything?
Oh, okay. Well, as you mentioned, we do have a vacancy for our HR director position since last August. So it's been a huge learning lesson for all of us. But I have to say that we have a great team in HR. And I just want to thank the city manager's office for their support. I want to thank the mayor and the council for their support as well during this really tough time for all of us. But we made it through, and thank you to all the employees also for just knowing that they can come and talk to us and also being patient with their requests and us getting back to them on all of their needs. So we appreciate this very much. So thank you.
We are delighted to recognize your special efforts. So thank you so much. I'll give this to you. Thank you. Well, do we want a picture, I think? We do.
So they don't ignore our emails. Good.
Okay, and we'll now go to public hearings regarding solar at City Hall. Gentlemen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
Bill Guerin with Public Works. With me tonight is Jonathan Whalen from Optiny, who is our management and commissioning consultant group helping us through the solar projects that we put in place so far and the City Hall project that we hope to put in place soon. We also have in the audience Dana Smith, if you could raise your hand, of Solarcraft. Dana is representing David Kuhnhard, who I think you remember from our past presentations on the solar project, and he's here to answer any questions.
Sitting next to David at the TAM meeting, he put the arm on me already. I probably shouldn't say that, but we do know David. Thank you. Sorry.
And he wished he could be here, but he
Right.
had a prior engagement, so Dana's filling in. Also, Corey Bidoff, of course, from our sustainability expert in the city, and Kevin McGowan are here. Between all of us, we hope we can answer whatever questions you come up with tonight so we can move on with this very important project. Under California Government Code Section 4217, the City Council may enter into an energy service contract that it determines to be in the best interest of the city if the determination is made at a regularly scheduled public hearing, public notice of which is given at least 2 weeks in advance. We did provide that notice, so we're here for a public hearing tonight to go through the City Hall solar project. As background, we've installed solar at the Albert J. Borough Community Center, at the Courtyard at Public Works, and at the C Street Garage that's serving both garages, the A Street and C Street Garage. These installations were completed in 2017, and they're operating as we anticipated that they would. We delayed installing the City Hall solar project because of the need to replace the roof primarily and the switchgear. The roof has been replaced last year. The switchgear is under construction now. That's the large project in the upper parking lot that seems to be taking over the lower parking lot as well. But that switchgear project will be done very shortly and will be positioned to accept the solar energy that comes from the panels as soon as those panels are put in place. In this public hearing, we're asking for a resolution to authorize the city manager to execute a First Amendment to the power purchase agreement with Soled Holdings regarding the City Hall solar project. The amendment is necessary because of changes required to the original power purchase agreement to recognize changes in the business model of solar installations, which has necessitated modifications to the original financial structure of the transaction in order to successfully gain financial backing. There are three significant changes that we're asking for in this amendment. The term of the agreement has been extended from 20 years to 30 years. The payback period is longer, but will lock in energy pricing for the longer period of time. And we still have options built into the contract to buy out the power purchase agreement at various times during the term of the contract. So we have the ability to buy out the solid financer and take over the system ourselves if we choose to do so. The contract price has also changed to reflect a longer payback period. The original agreement included energy pricing that started at 17.5 cents per kilowatt hour and escalated at 2.5% per year for 15 years, and then dropped by 10% each year from year 16 through 20. The new agreement has the same starting point, but escalates at a rate of 1.5% for 30 years. It results in better energy savings through year 20, but also guarantees a longer revenue stream for Soled. The savings generated from this agreement will mostly be used to pay back the financier, but the city will also benefit by benefiting from some of the savings that are associated with the solar panels as well. We also modified the termination payment amount shown in the amendment, again at various times, to reflect the 30-year agreement that we put in place. There's some other minor things as well, but those are the three main terms that were changed in the amendment to the contract. Under this agreement, we'll install solar panels on the roof of City Hall as well as on awning structures at the lower level parking lot. The awnings will be a minimum of 12 feet, so they will not interfere with the use of the parking lot that exists today and in the future. The fiscal impact is minimal. We're in the process of upgrading the City Hall switchgear. The new equipment will be able to accommodate the solar system being proposed. That project was required anyway, but we did design it in a way that it could accommodate the solar panels. So there is a cost associated with that. But the city will not incur any other upfront cost to install the system. We may be asked to do some minor tree trimming and other things to accommodate to maximize the power generation from the panels, but otherwise the installation is effectively free to the city as a starting point. We've conducted extensive public outreach for the city's solar program, and the installation is exempt from design review under state and local codes. So again, we're recommending that you conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a First Amendment to the power purchase agreement for the City Hall solar installation. And we all would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Of course you will. Are there questions? I was curious about 30 years. What's the useful life of these panels? How does that enter into this consideration?
And good evening. I'm Jonathan Whalen with Option. Good to be back here again to see you all. The 30-year timeline is well in line with what we've actually been seeing with installed solar systems. The modules themselves are guaranteed to be producing 80% of the out-of-the-box power in day one. They're guaranteed to be producing at least 80% at year 25. So it's a linear degradation of the silicon. So by year 30, say you might have 70, somewhere between 75 to 80% of the year one, day one production guaranteed.
But that assumes, I don't know much about this area, so it'll be obvious in a moment. But that assumes that the current solar production is the maximum one might derive, and over this period of time, presumably they're going to become more efficient or more effective or whatever. So the fact that it declines a little bit over that 30-year period, I still wonder, won't we be faced with, well, perhaps the opportunity of replacing with something that's more up to date. I mean, 30 years is a long time, right?
I think you're exactly right that you would have the opportunity to work with your vendor. They're trying to sell you a certain amount of energy from that solar, and so the system has been sized to give you that amount of energy. If future energy efficiency improvements were made, that might be the system has been sized slightly below to account for that. But if the energy consumption of City Hall increased, such as by having electric vehicle chargers or something like that added, then you'd have the opportunity to add on by working with SolEd, and they would surely like to sell you more electricity.
Okay, any other, Maribeth?
A specific follow-up question. The inverter replacement, who's responsible for that? Is that?
That is covered by SolEd. So the owner of the system, which is the third party, the installer, they are required to maintain and operate the system. So any inverter outages, if the modules do degrade beyond the warranty, then they are on the hook for the repair at no cost to the city.
So the inverters, which have a useful life of?
Those are usually get warranted at 10 years, which is a reasonable life.
Okay, so we're expecting at least 2 inverter replacements.
I would say that's fair to assume.
And is that
all
cost,
included?
That cost is included in the capital budget?
That's correct. That's exactly right.
All right, thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, I too got buttonholed by David at a recent meeting, and so some of my questions were answered, but of course he provoked other questions, so I read the staff report especially closely. I'm assuming that I either misheard you or maybe you misspoke, Bill, when you said that the price increases at 1.5% a year all the way out to year 30. I thought it did it to year 20, then it flattens from 20 to 30. Is that right?
I think so.
You are correct, Councilmember. It is, yeah. It's 1.5 per year for the first 20 years, and then flat for years 21 through 30. That's correct.
So I'm going to seize upon the point that only really maybe a lawyer can appreciate best, and that is, you mentioned that the inverters have a 10-year warranted life. What about the panels themselves?
So that is the 25-year performance guarantee. They've got a 5-year workmanship warranty, but these are passive materials. But the performance guarantee is 90% for the first 10 years out of the box, and 80% of expected power for the first 25 years out of the box. So if anything, if these modules degrade faster than expected, then that warranty can be put into place by the owner, by SolEd.
But so the performance warranty, if you will, that's backed by SolEd.
By the module installer, module manufacturer actually, which is SunPower.
And I'm sorry, that goes to how long?
25 years for the 80% of expected power from the max power from the modules.
So if we see degradation that's worse than what's projected, then we have the benefit of that warranty.
That's right.
Terrific. The 17.5 cent per kilowatt starting rate, how does that compare to PG&E's present prices?
I think that's a great question. The A10 average rate right now is 17.8 cents. So it's very close. Year one savings are relatively minor, but they do exist. And then the 1.5% yearly escalator is less than the typical 3% to 4% expected utility rate increases that we've seen historically.
Okay. The termination payments, that schedule, now that it's amortized out over 30 years, the payments extend further out, but why do they jump so significantly? Is this a financing cost?
I believe that's correct. It's a financing cost, and it's a valuation of revenue stream cost as well.
Okay. So I'll just share just a little bit of my concerns, and if anybody else wants to jump in and try to alleviate them. I absolutely support the aspiration of the agreement and the reason we approved it originally, but you're asking us to, pardon me, accept a 10-year extension to the base term, which commits us to this particular installation for 30 years instead of 20, whereas before we had 2 5-year options at year 20, so we could elect to proceed with the installation, or we could tell SolEd to remove it, and we could go with another provider. perhaps better equipment, more efficient equipment, perhaps at a lower price, but we don't know. So here we're tied to this particular owner for 30 years. We have the benefit of a 25-year warranty for the panels and a 10-year warranty for the inverters. So we're reliant for at least the last 5 years on SolEd's ability to perform. And it looks like they've now moved this into an LLC that I'm guessing is the only entity behind, it's a single asset entity, I'm assuming. It's for the purpose of this project and no other?
I just want to point out, council member, that Optony is representing the city in this, and Solarcraft is representing David Kunart, who is representing the financier. So that question may be better addressed to,
Okay.
unless Jonathan wants to dive in, it may be better.
Well, if
addressed
you
to-
know, great, but if you wish to answer it, let me know.
Please.
Hi, Council. My name's Dana Smith. I'm from a company called Solarcraft. We're a local company, 30 years here, one of the bigger solar installers. So we're partnering with SolEd to do the actual installation, so we get paid to do the install. And I apologize, I can't speak to all the nuances of the contract. That's with the finance company. I did want to clarify a couple things. The modules you're getting are SunPower. They're the industry best. They have the best warranty. They're 25-year production warranty, performance warranty, but they also have a 25-year workmanship, which is super unusual. And the degradation is actually better than what you mentioned. Yours, Jonathan, mentioned some numbers that were probably more typical for regular modules. The degradation on this is 0.4%, 0.2, 0.5, 0.25%. So they're going to be well over 80% in year 20. And if there was a module that would be considered like a 40-year module, it's probably this one that you're buying. They don't guarantee it. They'll put a warranty on it for 25, but it's very likely those modules will be sitting there for 40 years. The inverters, you're right, they're warranted for 10. They can easily go 15, but that's all on the finance company. In some ways, they have all the risk. They're insuring it, they clean it, they maintain it. If there's a problem, it's on them. You're just buying the energy from it. One of the biggest values of the PPA is it's an energy hedge. You're locking in this 17.5-cent rate. It's got the 1.5% escalator. That's way lower than what PG&E has done in the last 10 years. And most people reading the papers with the bankruptcy and the cost and all the infrastructure costs with PG&E, people expect the rates to be much, much higher than that. So that you can lock it in for 30 years is a good thing. And as far as the buyout at the end and some of those nuances, I apologize. I'm not on the finance side of the contract. I do a lot of solar. It's a great benefit to have a finance company come in and monetize the tax credits. We do a lot of nonprofits and things that couldn't get solar without that. I think they worked really hard to give you guys a really good deal on this because you've got carports, prevailing wage. It's not an inexpensive project, and the fact that they made the numbers work is kudos to them. I apologize.
That was
I'm not sure I
helpful.
answered it directly.
No, it was helpful, but again, my concern is the party we're contracting with is an LLC, SolEd Solar Holdings V LLC. So while it's true that the financing entity is taking on certainly a certain amount of risk here, they're not a party to this agreement. We can't proceed against them unless it is SolEd Solar Holdings that's funding this. Is that in fact the funding party, or are they obtaining third-party financing?
They have partners for sure.
Yeah.
When you monetize this, you definitely have to get some tax partners, and yeah, it's a complicated transaction.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to make it sound negative. They do it all the time. There's a lot of PPAs that happen, and I think you're already under a PPA for more than a couple projects.
Yeah. But again, the point here is we're going from 20 years to 30 years, and it's hard to know what's going to happen 20, 25, 30 years from now. That's all. Last question, and that is the 115% purchase requirement. If our needs here at City Hall reduce, are we going to be able to meet that 115% requirement? And I reduce because some of our staff will be moving across the street. We may, in fact, find greater efficiency here at City Hall. We may not use electric car charging in the way that we plan. how do we manage that purchase requirement?
And I can speak to that to some extent. And I believe it's 110%, but it might be
Pardon me.
maybe at 115. So that is based off of the expected output from the solar array. And so the solar system has actually been downsized a little bit to some extent to account for that change in facility usage. If somehow the solar system produced more than 110% of what the expected quantity was, and City Hall didn't need it, essentially that energy would go right back to PG&E, and you'd receive a very low compensation for it. It's about 4 cents per kilowatt hour. Anything beyond 110%, the city would not have to pay the full PPA price. The SolEd would essentially be able to quote-unquote sell that energy to the utility. So they would take that 4 cents, but they wouldn't charge you 17 cents for it.
Yeah, but if we're only buying 100% or 90%, and there's that delta, we're required to buy 110% of the projected output, then we've got to pay that delta between the 4 cents from PG&E and the 17 cents we're supposed to pay, or whatever the number is.
That is correct, but that's partly why it's 100% of the expected production, which is significantly less than the anticipated usage of the facility.
Okay. Okay.
And one minor point to add on to that, Mr. Vice Mayor, is that of all the spaces that we'll lose when the Public Safety Center, all the employees that move to the Public Safety Center, we plan on filling all of those spaces with people that are currently in other buildings that we'll be bringing into this building, like parking services and economic development.
I would also point out that we just put conduit in the ground to get every parking space in the building EV ready. So if that is the way the world is moving, and we've positioned ourselves to accommodate that in the future.
You okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I will ask at this point for public comment, further public comment.
Good evening. Bob Spofford from Sustainable San Rafael. Obviously, we very much favor your moving ahead with this, and I'm not going to get into any of the nuances you've been discussing, other than I think it's very gratifying, having been standing up here talking about this stuff for about the last 10 years, that it's now down to like serious dicing and slicing and making the business work. Compare that to the discussions we were having 10 years ago when it was all sort of blue sky and giant government subsidies and things like that. So we're very encouraged. Love to hear that we're making the numbers work now and encouraging you to go ahead. The only other thing I'd note is somebody else has referred to the insanely uncertain future of where electricity is going in the state with the PG&E bankruptcy and all that. And I would say one side effect of that is please keep your minds open and your eyes open vis-a-vis some of these other locations, conceivably revisiting Terra Linda or revisiting one of these other sites. Who knows what might pencil out 2 or 3 years from now when the rest of us are figuring out how to pay our bills. So
Good points.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Close and come back for further comments or discussion. I guess I have a question, certainly hearing the Vice Mayor. Mr. City Manager, are you still satisfied that this is the direction we should go?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As staff, we looked at the 20-year, kind of the deal that we had originally had versus this one, and we feel that there's kind of some pros and cons to this deal, but with the extra 10 years, we're also locking in the lower price for that period of time. So it seemed like it was a bit of a trade-off, and it seemed like overall that it was still a good project for the city of San Rafael, even with these changes. We've been wanting for a long time to do solar at City Hall. I remember participating in climate change action plan meetings years ago where Bill and others said, let's start at City Hall because we want to send a message to the rest of the community that solar makes sense and we want to be leaders. And we weren't able to do that based on our roof and other things that we had going on, but I think it still makes sense today now that we have finished the other projects and we find where we're at. that we would still recommend to move forward with this.
Okay.
Going
Oh.
to follow up on that, thank you. We've been talking a lot about the financing part, because that is what is before us, and it was just to remind all of us that the California in 2016 has a greenhouse gas reductions 40% below 1990 levels by 2030, which sounded a really far away when we adopted the plan back in 2009, and now look at 2030, we're like, wow, that's around the corner. So I just wanted to remind all of us, there's that part of the savings too, which doesn't necessarily calculate out in terms of numbers, but it is a part of our climate change action plan and a strong program.
Good point. Do you have any further questions?
No, I'll just make the comment that, obviously, by extending the term to 30 years and increasing the termination payments fairly substantially, we're increasing the risk profile in this deal measurably. I don't think it's enough to say no to the agreement, so I'm prepared to support it, but I do appreciate that there's just greater risk in the out years, and the whatever the lending arm is here, they're protecting themselves with this agreement. And we're taking just a little less protection in order to ensure that we meet the objectives that we set for ourselves. So as long as we recognize that, then we can go ahead and support it, because on balance, I think it, again, achieves what we want to achieve, but with just a little more risk than we had before.
So it sounds like the point for a motion by someone who would wish to make that motion.
I move
Okay.
that we adopt the resolution.
And
No, I'm happy to let you second that motion.
Second?
moved and second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Cullen.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
My matter carries 4-0, and we'll move on to council member reports. And
Very,
we'll-
very
yes,
quickly,
sir.
Marin Transit, I attended yesterday. They were not on holiday at the county.
Great.
And we spent a lot of time talking about the vehicle replacement, because the state has required that all of the transit goes to zero-emission vehicles by 2040. So there's this huge spreadsheet of how all the different buses and all the different vehicles are being phased out and being acquired, looking at the life cycle of each vehicle. So it's on the website, very interesting. Yeah, stay tuned, zero emission by 2040.
Yeah. Anyone else? I'll just point out that tomorrow, regarding SMART, we're going to have a workshop, and we're going to be discussing matters such as sales tax extension, which is going to be an interesting discussion, because it's over probably a 20-year period, maybe longer. So there's a lot happening during that period, so establishing what a reasonable approach might be is going to be a bit of a challenge. We'll also be talking about multi-use paths, and we have certainly a vested interest in that subject, along with fares and some other things. And just in case Farad is watching, I'll say I appreciate the effort that he's expended on this this idea, because I've received about this much stuff today in preparation for tomorrow. So that's going to be an interesting discussion. Anything else? No? In which case, I'm sorry, let's see, do we have anything under the successor? Nothing? In which case, we shall adjourn.